You are listening to the Shopify Solutions Podcast, a podcast for Shopify store owners that brings you concrete examples on how to build and grow your e-commerce business. My name is Scott Austin, and I have an e-commerce agency named Jade Puma. In this podcast, I'll share my e-commerce insights and best practices with you. Hey, Scott Austin here. This episode is part 2 of an episode that I did with Josh Frank, a CRO expert, on A/B testing in your Shopify store. So if you haven't yet listened to part 1, you can go ahead and listen to it now in episode 94 of the podcast. So let's shift on to the next topic, and that is I'm building up my test. I want to get smarter. I want to get my site converting better. Where would you, if you had to stack rank where I invested on the site in these efforts of A/B testing, where would I be doing them first, second, and third?
You're talking about like areas of the site?
Correct. Collection pages, product pages, header, articles, those kind of things.
Sure. I would say number 1 would be product page. Mm-hmm. The inherent goal of a homepage is to get you off of it. Right. You can't actually buy anything on our homepage. I want you off of that page.
I want to reiterate that a couple times. I say this all the time to my clients, right? The first thing is, if you are a successful store, people think of the homepage as the front door. The thing is, in an online store, every page is a front door, and not everybody goes to the homepage. If you are doing things well, you should, you should never send traffic to your homepage. So the only people that are showing up on your homepage are people that search for your brand in Google search or type in URL, which should be 20% of your customers. So everything's like, oh, I've got a Thanksgiving Day sale. We're recording this in November, which is why we've mentioned Thanksgiving a couple times. I've got a Thanksgiving sale. I'm going to put it on my homepage so all my customers see it. Nope. 20% of your customers are going to. The homepage is so less important than anybody thinks. Now, where a homepage is important, because of the nature of the way it's used, is for press. Because press are going to end up on your homepage, not on your product page. So it is actually, you need a good homepage. But your audience is not for your customers, actually, because they should be landing on your landing pages.
Yeah. So I couldn't echo that loud enough if I tried. When I open up, and Scott, I can't tell you, it's a countless amount of times when I do this. I open up Google Analytics, I look at the landing page report, and I add a dimension on there that shows me the source and medium of that traffic. So I want to see where's the traffic coming from and where is it ending up? And when I see in the top 2 or 3 paid traffic hitting the landing page, I cry a little bit inside, right? Because it's simply, first of all, and I'm going to get back to your original question on where to optimize, but I got to get through this first. If we have run any sort of ad, we inherently have information about that person and perhaps what they're interested in. If our ad set was, let's say it's Facebook, and the ad talks about those buttery soft t-shirts, right? And then I bring you to the homepage, I have failed. I should be bringing you to a product page, or even better, a dedicated landing page that talks about a bunch of reviews about the softness of the t-shirt. And it's message match. I know a little bit about you because one is I have an ad set dedicated to you, and I know that you clicked on this with this headline. I want to be hammering home that point. So product page would be where I would start. And in particular, that what we'll call the buy box. So I call that everything sort of next to the image gallery if we're talking on a desktop format. That is going to be absolutely massive for conversions. And then I think the most overlooked part of a product page is the image gallery. And I say that because it is very common. If I sell coffee mugs, and let's say it's one of those coffee mugs that keeps your drink warm, is that what I do is I take a picture. I find a really beautiful, beautiful home, right? And I take a picture of this coffee mug from 27 different angles and put it on my page. That doesn't do us much good. I appreciate, the dedication to finding a beautiful setting to put the mug in,
One photo is fine.
Yeah, but one photo is fine in that sense. I want the other photos to be lifestyle imagery of perhaps it's a mom or dad walking around, while their kids are getting ready for school, right? To signify you've got all this work to do in the morning, but we're keeping your coffee hot. I want another one that has little arrows that point to it to say made of super durable ceramic. Heats up to whatever it might be, 102 degrees, never enough to burn you. Like all these things that now, where did I get this information? Oh, from product reviews, from my qualitative information, right? So I have an image like that. And I might even take some images and use the bottom third of it to overlay a press mention, a testimonial, right? When you've got somebody rifling through your photos, if you've got 10 or 12 or 15 photos, you've got them as a bit of a captive audience. They're clicking through these pictures, just like, imagine if you're looking for an Airbnb, right? I hound those pictures. So do more with those images. Put some reviews on top of them. Point to all the specific benefits and features. Show them in an outcome type of setting where people can see. I've got a great quick story from a client on this. I had a client that sold kids dishes, basically. So their sort of value proposition is that plastic is pretty harmful to be eating off of, specifically with warm foods. So these are made out of stainless steel. They're in all sorts of neat colors, on and on and on. People kept asking when we did this qualitative stuff, are they dishwasher safe? Will they scratch in the dishwasher? Will they whatever in the dishwasher? So we added to the product description, dishwasher safe. We added as a little icon, dishwasher safe. We still kept getting this question over and over and over again. What we did was we made the second image in the image gallery a beautiful dishwasher with a ton of these dishes inside of it, which is the best way we ended up being able to message, yes, they're dishwasher safe, right? So like, think of it in terms like that. What objections can you solve using your image gallery? So that's my rant on image galleries. I really believe they're the most underutilized part of a product page.
So product page, focus a lot of time on that, especially in the product form and the image gallery. What would be the next part of the site?
Depending on how my site operated, it would be either the slide out cart or the cart page, whatever page you get to, whatever your action is after add to cart. I want that to be full of things like, what's your return policy? And by the way, if at this point you have a shitty return policy, like, it's got to be returned in 10 days and you have to add restocking fees, reevaluate your margins so that you can offer a legitimate return policy. Talk about, again, shipping, returns, warranty. Give me maybe a little widget that says, out of 100 reviews, we average 4.8. Like, give me all of those good feelings, because there's a great graph that I saw once years ago and I've never been able to find again. And it talks about our motivation as we shop an e-commerce store. Right when we hit the store, we have a little bit of motivation to search and look around. And then it sort of starts to wane. Once we get to a product page, it might start to tick up again. And then it has this big spike. Think of it almost like a little dopamine spike when you hit that add to cart button because you're excited. Just after that, it crashes, right? Because now we're getting to all the administrative things of, okay, how much is shipping going to be? And do I really want to go across the room and grab my wallet or purse? And do they have Apple Pay? And so it's when that is happening, when I want to be reminding them of all the great things about our company and all the little benefits and bonus points. If you say, every order over $50 gets a mystery gift, that might be something you want to try testing. But I want to keep motivation high in that cart through checkout. I would go then again, homepage and collection page are a bit of a tie to me. Homepage is certainly, important. I want people, but it's important because I want people to be getting to another page. I want to make, if you have a brand that people use search often enough, I want to make that really prominent. And I want to put little placeholder text that says, search brands, items, categories, etc. Like, tell me what I can actually put in there and things like that. So yeah, I would go sort of product page, cart and checkout, and then homepage, collection page. Collection page, you can do pretty well to just get out of people's way and let them sift and sort.
Interesting. First question I have is on the cart one. I thought collection would have been second, so it's interesting to see that, and I understand why cart is more important. I just never thought about it that way. You did mention fly out versus page. In general, is one preferred over another, or is that something we have to test in every single store?
I've tested it. I've tested it several times. The only sort of learning I've been able to find is that if you have a store where people tend not to buy a lot of items, it's usually like one item, then it's best to keep it to like a slide out, sort of like there's not a lot of interaction like needed in this. But if you have a store, let's say you run like a hardware store or like pool parts or things like that, people might be bulk buying a fair amount of things. They tend to want to see a cart and go, okay, line by line. Okay, did I get this many of this one, this many of that one? That's sort of the only learning I've been able to find there. And again, to your point on collection pages, I think that there are things we can do on collection pages. A lot of it depends on our catalog. Do we have a 15 item catalog or do we have a 1,500 item catalog, right? If we've got a lot of items, then I might want to pull out some of the most popular filters and say, show me best selling, show me things that are waterproof, show me, things like that. But again, it a bit depends on how big your catalog is.
For me, what I do in a lot of my stores, this is just a question of, and I've tested this. Is this like a good test? Should people think about this as one of their tests? Is instead of having the top level nav links go to a collection page, I like them to go to what I call a decision making page, which is, let's say at the top level, you picked clothing. So instead of showing a collection page with all the filters for clothing, then we say, all right, what are you looking for? Men, women, and children. And I put that on a page where they're narrowing down at the very top level. I like to make it so you're making one decision at a time on a page. And a collection page, if it's super complex in a large collection, you're literally making 100 different decisions, price, color, gender, all these kind of things. So I try to put an interstitial in the middle. Is that, I've tested it and it seems to work well. Is that the kind of thing that stores should be testing also?
Yeah, I love that. I can give you an example of where we've done something similar to that, which is I had a client that is a golf retailer. So they have lots and lots and lots and lots of products, and they have lots of filter options. What we didn't necessarily do a sort of interstitial, which I think is interesting. And it's sort of, I'm gonna butcher this, but I believe there's like some marketing philosophy called, I want to say it's like the law of cascading yeses or something like that. The idea being, if you can get a customer, and this is sort of spoken in terms of like sales calls and like, more traditional marketing, get them to say yes to a simple question, then get them to say yes to a slightly more advanced question, sort of working them up to saying yes to a purchase, right? This is sort of what you're playing with here, which I think is really interesting. Now, something that we've done before is we looked at all the filters, and we're thinking about buying golf clubs here, right? So they had filters like brand, they had filters like, all sorts of things, but they had some where we felt they were kind of like mutually exclusive. It's either this or that. Are you looking for men's clubs or women's clubs?
Yep.
Are you right-handed or left-handed? Mm-hmm. And we took those filters, we put them all the way up to the top, and we expanded them by default. So those were like the first ones you would see. Yep. And I wonder, again, I think the interstitial idea is interesting, but the point being, we're going to have you make a choice here and here. It's going to do two things. One, it's going to sort of, by that law of cascading yeses, you've started to interact with our store. But two, you're going to go from seeing 326 club options to maybe, 110. Okay. Then you can go and you might like multiple brands, or you like multiple different things in the other sense. But getting them to answer those mutually exclusive filters first is really helpful for us. And that's kind of why I think your idea there was a winner.
Like I said, I like to make it one. I'm very linear and very basic about things, and not everybody's like me. But for me, it's like one small step at a time. The micro yeses is totally. Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's what I'm getting people to do. Like, yeah, I want that. I want that. Yeah, you're talking to me, even though they're talking to us, right? Kind of thing.
Right.
How important is it? And we're talking about different parts of the site to test. How important is it to test header layouts?
The sort of best practice, right? If we're talking about, well, I guess let's are you talking about a header like logo, navigation, cart, or are you talking about a header? Okay, I don't know if you're header like hero section.
No, header on every single page, right?
Gotcha.
So most people use it as just navigation, right?
Yeah.
Brand.
So the things we test header wise, one that I already mentioned, which is search. And again, this might be dependent. Your brand might not have search and any reasonable search volume, but if you're a retailer, if you have a large product catalog, and let's say you go into analytics and you go, those that searched, they're likely to have a 3 to 4 times higher conversion rate than other people. That's not saying if you just force more people to search, it'll go higher, but I do like to make sure that that you are sort of smacked in the head with the search bar if that's sort of the case. The other thing is having,
just to follow up on that one, just so people understand, like, because I totally agree with you. What I've done for many stores that are search centric, right? And once again, I use the Flex theme for everything. And I don't know of a template that does this by default. I don't think any of them do it. They all hide the search bar by default.
Mm-hmm.
on mobile. So what I've done for many stores, like I'm working on a store today that sells water filters for your water filtration systems, right? So most people go in and they type in the part number for their filter into the search box.
Yep.
So we put a permanent search box in the mobile header. That search is always there. And that's the kind of thing you can test, like, does this help or not kind of thing.
And just to take that one step further, like I had mentioned before, you should go in and edit the placeholder text of that search field, right? Which is usually the sort of light gray text that as soon as you click, it kind of disappears. But you should modify that to say, again, search by product name, product ID, or category, something like that, so that people know, yep, I can just pump a SKU in here. And that's optimizing for your power users who likely are not going to get stopped by little bits of like, they're like, it's just like, get out of their way, let them shop. They don't need a lot of added motivation, but let's let them search the way they would want to go. So another thing I see header wise is having some sort of, whether it's, you call it like a notification bar or an announcement bar, right? That top 40 to 80 pixels or whatever it might be that has some value proposition stuff there. And try to lead with something meaningful, like meaning if you just say free shipping over 150, like, sure, that's there, but is that as impactful as, do you have a lifetime warranty on your product? Do you have, or again, we're speaking weeks before, the holiday shopping season. Do you have a 30% off site-wide sale? Like that should go there on every single page,
Well, I want to. We just agree so much. It's cracking me up here. It's like when I was at Microsoft, we used to call this adamant agreement, right? We were adamantly agreeing with each other. Like so, what I do on that. This is why I asked about the header, right? Because every customer sees the header on every page. They don't see the homepage. So whatever you think as a store owner you want to promote on your homepage banner, figure out how to put that into your header. And instead of putting it on top, like you were just mentioning, most DMs by default, a little announcement bar checkbox. I actually do a little custom code to throw it underneath the navigation because we're all trained to ignore what's above it.
Sure.
The logo is a waste of my time, but if you put it below and change the color to red and green for Christmas or whatever kind of, then it pops, but it's seen on every single page because you put it in the header, not as the first banner element on the page.
For sure. Yeah. And one small tweak we also do on mobile is we implement sort of what we refer to as like an elegant sticky header, meaning that when you are scrolling down on mobile, it disappears. But the moment you begin to scroll back up, the header kind of slides back down as if to say, if you need to jump into navigation, it's right here. If you need to bail out and search, it's right there, right? That's another little, thing that we've done that truth be told, like sometimes it looks like it's a test winner, sometimes it's kind of inconclusive, but I just think UX wise, it's helpful. But it's not, the important thing is it's not a sticky header all the time where it's simply changing your viewport to be smaller. You see that sometimes where you got a sticky header and a sticky footer, and now you've given me back an original iPhone to look at. I don't want that. I bought a 13 Max or whatever.
Yep. No, what I like, because I don't like sticky headers at all, and I can't stand when my customers really, really want them. What I like to do then is on the product page, have the footer pop up. Once the add to cart button's off the page, then I pop up a footer, which is back to top. And not a cart, but back to top and take them back up to the form kind of thing. But, I'm a big fan of stop trying to be smarter than your customer and let them do it themselves. They're scrolling, let them scroll kind of thing. But so if we're doing prioritizations, we've got, product page, cart page, collection, home page, header, and, there's other stuff after that. But if you've done all the stuff we've already talked about, you're way advanced. So we don't need to go any deeper than that. Can you give, because like I said before, I examples just to illustrate. We've done a lot of them. So far. Like if I'm a store owner, what are like 5 types of things or ideas I can think about testing and try to put a little prioritization on them for that product page and product form. And what I'm really leading up to is the classic one. Oh, test your color of your add to cart button versus other things that we should or could be testing.
The only caveat to the button color testing thing is, yes, usually it's a horrifically silly idea to think that one color performs better than another, but the caveat to that is, does your add to cart button show some sort of contrast, right? If you're using that, the ghost button where you almost can't tell it's a button, but we're an elegant design company. Okay, great. But nobody can tell your button's a button, or they think it's sold out because of the way the button, shades into the background.
Once again, we're adamantly agreeing. What I love is the very the tone you use for Elegant Design Company. Like,
yeah. The amount of clients that have come to me after a redesign, and I go to the company that redesigned and they boast about having award-winning design. They've won this design award and that design award. Yet your client just came to me and said, oh my God, we spent all this money on this redesign and I don't think it's doing anything to improve. I think it might be hurting. Can you come help us make this convert better? That is, time and time and time again. And I say it with that tone because I mean it with that tone. If your goal is to win a design award for a client, F off. Honestly, like that, it's silliness.
Be building billboard sites, not e-commerce sites.
Right? Absolutely.
And that's, like I tell my clients this all the time, is like, my goal is not to build you a good looking site. My goal is to build you a site that sells, and converts really well. Now, there's a level of professionalism, good lookingness, if that's a word, that you have to have. But my goal is not to be good looking. It is to convert. Right. And sometimes what converts, and like you're just talking about contrast, right? Contrast is so important, but any subtle brand doesn't want contrast. But contrast is absolutely essential to make things easy and obvious for customers.
And absolutely.
So my clients have thought about it is, assume for a second that your customer is a soccer mom driving her kids to soccer practice, looking at you on the phone while driving, right? Can she understand what your page is trying to say to her or not while the kids are screaming behind her? And they laugh. I'm like, but I'm serious. Like,
absolutely serious. And yet the way that many of us that build these experiences do it is on a 30-inch monitor with quiet, peaceful music on. We're sufficiently caffeinated, and we're supposed to design experiences that you said are going to be, in our house, I'm often shopping for something and I got two kids going, hey dad. And I'm trying to figure, there was an old blog back in the day. I think it was called your user is a lazy drunk or something. Maybe it was just like an infographic, but that was the idea being like, imagine you've got a lazy drunk person. You're trying to design an experience for them. So you had asked about some more kind of like examples. And I think that what I'll do is I'll walk through this relatively quickly. I know we've been talking for a little bit, but I have a framework that I use for evaluating product pages. So I call it the script framework. So script stands for story, clarity, reviews, images, parts and pieces, and terms. So I'll quickly sort of talk about what these all mean and sort of what examples I've tested kind of based off of these. And we can that should be a good place to leave people with some sort of work to do. So when it comes to story, I sort of talk about does your product page tell a captivating story about how your product improves someone's life? Now, when I say story, people kind of roll their eyes and they're like, what am I supposed to start my page with? Once upon a time? And no, it's not that. But if you sell a product that has improved, someone's life or produce some outcome, that's what you want to lead with. An example is, I used to have a client that sold medical ID jewelry, right? So it's a piece of jewelry, but on it might say, allergic to insulin or allergic to bees, EpiPen in right pocket. This product is saving people's lives, And one of the things that we found through research was that many people, let's use a bee allergy as an example. Many people with a bee allergy do not wear their medical ID alert because it's ugly, doesn't match with their outfit. They don't like that anyone, in a cafe at a Starbucks looks and goes, I wonder what that's all about. Why do they have to wear that ugly stainless steel bracelet? And yet that this company allowed them to feel confident and comfortable wearing this, meaning they actually wore it, meaning it did its actual job. When an EMT who's trained to look at the risks for bracelets came to see that. That's a story about how your product improves someone's life. So again, it all falls back to this qualitative stuff. So how are you injecting story into your product page? The next one is clarity. I use this all the time, but I say clear beats clever every time. We all love to see these old Volkswagen ads that have these really clever headlines, but those are great because they're clever and they're clear, which is a Venn diagram overlap. It's really, really a lot harder than you think. So just go with clear.
Well, and the other thing I'll add on top of that is everybody also knows the Volkswagen. They're not doing education at that level, right? They're just being clever because you don't have to explain what the Volkswagen is.
Right. Yeah. So, and when I say clarity, I also mean quit overusing like jargony terms. Don't say satisfaction guaranteed. That's been used so many times it has no meaning anymore. Don't say, best in class. Like, what does that even mean? So you have to try when you're writing copy for your page, go ahead and write it out and then edit like crazy to get rid of those overused terms and be as crystal clear as possible. I sometimes say, imagine you were writing a letter to a friend about your product. Use copy that sounds like that. Again, clear over clever.
One other tip I'll throw in is, one of the things I recommend people do is record it, say it to yourself, and then just use any transcription, which is tons of them. My phone automatically turns into text. Start with that and then edit it, and it's going to sound much more natural and clear.
For sure. And like we talked about previously, steal that stuff from reviews, steal it from user testing sessions, things like that. The third one is actually reviews, and it's not just having reviews is obvious, but take some of those reviews that are particularly great, feature them elsewhere on your page than just the reviews thing, which is probably at the bottom of the page and probably is only accessible if you click the tiny little star rating at the top. Pull out a featured review, like I talked about before. You can put it on an image, you can overlay it on an image, you can put it in the product description, and a great review sounds something like this. When I first saw this product, I was worried that X would happen. When I got it and opened it up and started using it, I realized that XYZ benefit, I can't believe I ever lived without this, right? That's the type of review that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody presents some sort of, I wasn't sure this was going to work. So the person reading that is thinking, oh, good, I'm not crazy for having a reservation about this, which everyone has. But it overcame those obstacles when I got it and it worked and blah, 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 blah. So that's reviews. Images, we've talked enough about images, right? I've talked about them a lot today. Use outcome-based images, overlay them with text that point to the specific benefits. Really hammer this image gallery and make it work as hard as it can for you. The next one is parts and pieces. Parts and pieces meaning when I order this product, what exactly is going to show up? What is in the box? If it's a product that needs batteries, are there batteries? If it's a product that needs a power supply, is there a power supply? Does this part come with that part? All those types of things are crucial.
I love a flat lay photo of what's in the box. Right.
And again, this is another way how they're all sort of linked together. We can accomplish so many of these objection busting things with the image gallery. Like you said, a from the top image with everything that comes in the box, especially if you spend a lot on packaging and yet no one gets to see that amazing packaging until they receive it. That's crazy. Yep. Look at some of these brands like Seed, Mudwater. They sell these kind of they're just supplements, right? But their packaging is so incredible.
Yep.
If you have this isn't meant to be a free plug for Seed probiotics, but that packaging, when it showed up, my wife ordered it, the packaging showed up and I sat there with it for 25 minutes. I couldn't believe how good the packaging was, but they show that on the front end too. This is what you're getting. Yep. The last one will be terms. So by terms, I mean, when's it going to ship? Can I return it? Is there a warranty? All the what if questions. What if I get it and it's broken? What if it doesn't live up to my expectations? What if it doesn't fit? Answer all those questions to make people really, really comfortable. These are the little nagging things in the back of people's mind that's going to make them abandon a cart or abandon a checkout. So again, that's what we call the script, the script framework. And if you go through that, you should be buzzing with some ideas.
No, and I love that. And to reinforce your last one of terms, what I do for 95% of my stores is I actually take the shipping policy and the return policy, drop them onto every single product page in an accordion, which is easy to do in Sections Anywhere today. So that the thing I always explain to my clients is you don't want to send people off this product page to learn more about purchasing this product. So if shipping policy is important, which it is for every one of them, and return policy, put it right on the page. Same thing with size guides and all that stuff. I love big, long product pages that have all the information, and each one is, a little mini site to itself kind of thing.
Yeah. And the other thing about terms and policies is that these are often talked about by store owners as, as like risk mitigation, or as we've got to make this policy as beneficial to us as possible so we're not losing money. I really recommend you flip the script on that. How can we create a policy that obviously doesn't run us bankrupt, but if your product is good and the way you talk about your product on your product page is good, you shouldn't have a massive return policy. And so you should be able to offer a favorable set of terms that almost become a bit of a value proposition for you. I really encourage companies to try and be as beneficial to the customer as you reasonably can be with your return policies, with your warranty stuff, with how you exchange products, and all these types of things. And then you can put it on your product page, and it actually, again, helps to sell the product.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And my proof point there is the number one e-commerce store in the world is obviously Amazon. And the worst shopping experience in the world is obviously Amazon, right? Nobody goes to Amazon because they make it easy to find the product you're looking for. And by the way, I don't think I could do better than they did with, literally 100 million products in my store, right? I understand their problem, but their shopping experience is horrible. Everybody goes to Amazon because they have everything. They get it tomorrow, and the returns, I can literally walk a block and a half from my house, take my return, throw it to the 7-Eleven cubicle bin, and my return is done, right? Everybody uses Amazon because of their policies, not because of the quality of their shopping experience. That's how important these things are, as you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding that whether you want it to be or not only is Amazon a competitor of yours, but also just complacency as a competitor of yours. There are all these different competitors you have that aren't just, the other store that sells a similar product to you. So you're always looking for ways you can be, not just be more customer friendly, but if you have that policy, advertise the hell out of it.
Yes, absolutely agree. Cool. So we've gone over a ton. And we now have a bunch of Shopify store owners who 6 months from now are going to be, testing things out, getting smarter. When do people stop doing it themselves? And when do they start hiring a professional firm like you guys at Test Triggers to do this instead? Like when should they know that, now's the time to bring in the pros instead of just myself?
There are two sort of big reasons why people come to us. One is one I've previously mentioned, which is they have spent a lot of money on a new theme, on a new design, and perhaps by no fault of whoever built it, but it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And they want to specifically know, hey, and what's going on here? And in that sense, we usually will jump in and do like an audit, right? Well, first of all, we'll make sure their analytics are actually working like they should be, Google Analytics, right? We're going to go through, we're going to actually run the visitor polls we just talked about. We're going to look at the heat maps, everything we just talked about, and deliver, hey, if you were going to fix 20 things on your store, here they are, and they're all ranked by the potential for the idea. Is it actually going to be seen by a lot of traffic? Is it easy to accomplish, right? So we rank them. So you can start at the top and work your way down, and you can work with our team to do that, or your own team, whatever. And at some point, let's say a client says, we've actually gotten to this point where we're spending a lot of money on paid ads, right? And this is, and paid ads are getting harder and harder and harder to make successful with things like iOS 14 and whatever else. And they go, you know what? We're going to take X percentage of this budget we spend on paid and bring in somebody like Josh and his team to say, if you can help our conversion rates, especially on this paid traffic, go up, it only makes our cost per acquisition go down. And it makes everything sort of, it becomes a virtuous cycle of improvements here. So those are sort of the two main areas, right? We've either invested in a redesign and we're not seeing what we want, or we're spending a lot on paid ads and we just aren't getting everything we want out of this. And I want to know where the problems are and how we can fix them.
Excellent. So last question, is CRO a project that is bound by a time frame or whatever, or is it a program where it's an ongoing evergreen thing?
I only really do that distinction if for us, it's sort of, are we running an A/B testing campaign or are we not? And if we're not, in the sense that, again, either the traffic's not there or the client's not interested in it, then yes, it's sort of a project. And when I leave that project with a client, I try hard to do enough of a job teaching them to say, here are the ways you can continue these optimization efforts and sort of make it an ongoing thing of their own. But if a client, again, if they've got a lot of traffic, they might say, we want to bring you on for the next X amount of time. Every month, we want to see 2 to 3 A/B tests around. We want you to, so there are definitely those two ways that we engage with clients. But no matter what, I want to create a CRO culture within the people that we work with, so that they are thinking in terms of, how is this actually going to positively affect my customers and my conversion rate, versus just we're making changes because we saw it on a blog post.
So for the Shopify store owner, CRO is a program, and they may bring in external help for projects, right? It's something that you as a store owner should be thinking about all the time and doing all the time. It's not like, oh, I did CRO in February, I'm good for
Right, right, for sure, because you're always going to have new campaigns and new things that need it's interesting to me that CRO, as often as it may be talked about, it often gets left behind when it comes to how we think about growing our store. It's always, and was always talking about traffic, but we're not after traffic, we're after profit. And so in CRO, again, I'm sure I'm, a little biased, but I believe it to be the best, investment you can make, because one, if you make positive changes, they don't go away tomorrow just because you turn off that campaign. When you go to run that campaign, it only makes it more profitable. So there's just a lot of, again, I think benefits to making it more of an ingrained part of your culture and DNA, rather than just say, tomorrow I do some CRO.
Yeah. Well, and to go back to the comment I made early on, where the smart ones, the successful ones, they understand their customers really well. And this is a way to understand your customer.
Honestly, Scott, that's at the core of what it really is. The CRO ideas and the A/B testing are really a byproduct of doing great customer research. And sometimes I hate using the word research because I just know it makes people's eyes glaze over because it sounds like a research project from back in the day. Maybe that's part of our lizard brain. But if you want to call it evidence mining, you want to call it whatever you want to call it, asking great questions to customers and truly listening to their answers, right? What's the old saying? We're born with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should be listening and trying to understand those things. And the ideas will really become a byproduct of that. You won't be wondering, how do I get CRO ideas? You will never wonder that if you're doing great customer research.
That's awesome to hear. So how do people reach out to you if they want to talk to you in the future?
The easiest way, honestly, is just Twitter. I'm just at Josh Frank on Twitter. I will answer any CRO questions you have. You can ping me and DM me and whatever there. Obviously, there's testtriggers.com. But yeah, I'm active on Twitter, and I love answering questions. And even if people want to ping me with their e-commerce store, I usually do a couple kind of free CRO video reviews per month just to kind of, look at stores and give some feedback. So find me on Twitter and ask me whatever you like.
Well, thanks for this conversation today. This was a lot of fun and really informative.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to the Shopify Solutions Podcast with Scott Austin. This podcast is brought to you by Jade Puma, a Shopify-focused agency located in San Diego, California. If you like what you heard, please leave a review and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast.